it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood ones of holly. Suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempted mental robbery, executed sloppily. The poppers see this mockery and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet.
So we, eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful friends, welcome to your Thursday night episode of Middle Path. That's right, this is Middle Path. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or anywhere that is not Rockfin, then you will have to go over to Rockfin tonight to get the entirety of the show, which today we're going to be talking about all kinds of things. Chi, biomagnetism, prana, braille, orgone, all this stuff, and all sorts of things about it that are synchro-mystically tied into everything else that we've ever talked about. For very good reason, because this is the energy of literally everything, every phenomenon, every aspect of the universe that we can perceive is infused with these things. It's like the Force, and that's not an accident either. The people who make those movies, they know what's going on. They know what they're doing. And I hope you're still digging my summer dew. This is like I can't manage to blow hot air at my head in the morning, so I get my curls. So summer is my curly time. I dig it. And it's nice to see you, Mateo, in the chat, and the other people who haven't said hello yet. We've got a bunch of people over on Rockfin who haven't said hello yet. Welcome to all of you. Feel free to chat. You know, it's turning out like the last episode of Rogue Ways I did, there was more people in Rockfin than there was on YouTube, and that was pretty cool. So I hope to eventually have like the mass of people over there all the time. But you know, Thursdays are Middle Path, and Thursdays Middle Path is only on Rockfin. So again, we'll be here for a minute because it's cool. There's some stuff that we can share here, and then there's stuff that we're gonna only have over on Rockfin. So anyways, today was nice, actually. I don't know where you're at. They are definitely burning up the country, you know, every single day. I just see nothing but intense chemtrailing all day, every day. And then this heat comes in, you know, and people will say things like, oh, it's so unnatural. It's global climate change. And it is. It's global, and the climate's changing. It's just not for the reasons that they tell you it is. It's for their own reasons. When they're spraying the sky with all this shit. They can make it rain. They can make it hot. They can make it cool. We have HAARP technology. We have all kinds of stuff that they're using in conjunction with one another to create the exact weather they want. So if you're like me, they're burning you out. I just saw an article today, too, on the Lame Stream that was, summer hasn't even started yet, and already millions of Americans are experiencing unnatural heat. I'm like, this is their headline, where they're just like, get ready, we're going to fry you even more. And I believe them, because that's their goal, right? They're going to light all kinds of forests on fires, just like they did last year. Remember last year we saw just so many reports from all over the world. Everywhere we saw wildfires, we saw reports of arsonists. Every single place. And these people were never, ever after that focused on again. We didn't get to understand their motives or see what happened to them or see them brought to justice, but we can guess. And we wouldn't be probably too remiss for guessing that some of these people are probably mentally ill and probably experiencing some form of technological harassment that maybe induces them to want to go do things like that. Just like we hear all the time from people who are out rioting, doing Antifa type shit. Again, not that being against fascism is bad. It'd be rad if you were actually against fascism. But instead, a lot of these people are just very fascist and out just doing all kinds of chaotic things. So we saw that a lot with all of these fires last year, and I'm sure we're going to see the same thing again this year. Maybe they'll hide it even more, how much it is arsonists doing this. But we'll see, you know, but we know we can probably expect a lot of wildfires. And I don't know about you, but that drives me insane to know that our beautiful natural world could be enjoyable, could be free from smoke, could be not blazing, just fucking ass hellish hot all the fucking time, and could be nice and wonderful for all of us. You know, we could have plenty of water, plenty of food, and all these things, and live in pretty relative harmony if these motherfuckers weren't constantly fucking with everything. So, you know, I'm smiling, but in my heart, I'm kind of angry about it all. And I bet you are too. Thank you so much, Rebecca Ann, for the tip in Rockfin. I really appreciate tips. It keeps this channel going. I don't know if you all know, but I don't just have money falling down out of the sky on me. Or maybe I do. Let's visualize that. I have so much money just falling down on the sky for me. But I love to share what I do get with people too. So I practice sort of like tithing. And every month, whatever I get from Rogue Ways, whatever I get from Middle Path, whatever I get from all of the tarot readings, the sessions that I do, you know, any jewelry, blessed jewelry that I sell, anything like that I get coming in, I 100% take at least 10% and I give that to people in need. And my favorite way to do that is, for example, a member of our family, our community here at Rogue Ways, I won't give her name just in case, but if you're in our community, you probably know. She suffered a fire, a devastating fire. The insurance, you know, premium is higher than she can afford, so she doesn't get any help at all, you know, and she's already suffering from really severe disabilities, from Lyme disease and more, and has been struggling already with all of this, right? And lives with her disabled, you know, an elderly parent, and also takes on other things too. So a lot going on there, and really desperately needed our help. So I took my tithing for the month and I sent it her way, right? And the month before that, it was a similar situation. I'd rather find the like specific person with a specific need and give it directly to them. But if I can't find that, then I also find a nice organization, either locally or abroad, to give to an organization that I can trust to actually help people and not just take it all for administrative costs and whatnot. So I really appreciate all the support that I get, and I really love being able to give that back. The Compassion Fund we did for a while, people had donated, you know, and we had this fund that was just for things like that. People who maybe needed a reading or needed some guidance, or had, you know, a need of just money. You know, we all contributed in the community and beefed that fund up, and that is mostly gone now. So I'm probably going to do another, you know, fundraising drive for that, and I'll share my spreadsheet of what comes in and what goes out if anybody ever cares to know. It's not like official. It's just me keeping track of that kind of stuff. Anyways, I don't even know how I got off on this tangent, but that is one thing that does happen in our community. Oh, because I got tips. Aaron, thank you for tipping in Rockfin. You know, same. Your tips coming in, always get a percentage of them that go right back out to the community. So, Mateo saying in the chat, I was hoping for a wardrobe malfunction on the Naked podcast. There's 2 nudist podcasts I've done now. One on this channel where John Coleman came in and we did the whole episode about nudism and the sort of history of that in schools and families and society, and some pieces of that and what's good about nudism. And then I was just actually on his show yesterday. It's airing, I think, right now, actually. I could be wrong. I didn't mean to compete with him, but that might be what's going on. But you can catch it any time, and we did it nude again because we were doing emotional nudity in poetry, and so yeah, some people are really interested in that level of nudism. Travel around the world, man, it's way more common. We're just weirdos here in the West. Terrified of the naked body, obsessed with making it sexual. But anyways, I digress. Tonight, we are going to talk about the beautiful energy that is in literally every moment and everything. There's nothing that's not infused with this beautiful energy. And what's really interesting about it is how you can access it and do anything you want with it. And that's what's hidden from you. The energy's existence is sort of hidden. It's not talked about a lot in our materialist, obsessed world. But definitely the ways to work with it and how it can transform your entire life are hidden from you. So we're going to get into that today, and that's exciting. I don't know about you, but I'm excited about that. And thank you to everybody who's over on Rockfin. I see Bad Bee in the chat, as well as the people who have been tipping that I already mentioned, and thank you so much to all of you. So I do have some really exciting things to share. Wow, I have so many screens now that I don't even know what I've done. There we go. Let's see. So I want to share with you some things that are really exciting for me. One thing is, I always like to try to not have you guys just, well, We'll just leave that how it is. I'll stop fussing. One thing is really exciting. We're 2 days away. This is the site. This is rogueways.org, aka CoreySharman.com. Both are the same site. 2 days away from the 1 day of brightness summer solstice event. I am so excited. The sun is at the height of its journey, at the height of its power before it starts declining. It's not a bad thing when it declines, but it's so nice to tap into it at the height of its power. And that's exactly what we're doing on Saturday. This is a virtual online retreat. If you feel like, oh, I'm not in your location, it doesn't matter. You can be there with us via Zoom. People who come to this always feel uplifted, enlightened, just saturated with goodness and just so much. It's just beyond what people expect when they first sign up. I think they're kind of like, yeah, I don't know, it'll be a boring conference thing. It is not boring. And it is not like any conference you've ever been to. It is absolutely like a power show of all of the goodness of life. And it really gets deeply infused. It lasts for so long afterwards. You know, that high that we get during the event, it doesn't go away right when it's over. It just keeps going. And if you are adept and you keep it high in yourself, you can keep it going really forever, really until maybe the fall equinox, our next one. But we have all so much goodness that comes in. A lot of it is inspired both in myself and in the other presenters this day. It's inspired like the day of, the morning of, which I think a lot of us work that way when we're working with these spiritual energies. And so I can never promise you exactly what's going to happen, but I do have this list here of the types of things that tend to happen or could happen. And it's not even a complete list, but it's things we've touched on before. We always have spiritual communication. Messages are always pouring in. We're all having synchronicities all day long. It's not planned, but by us at least consciously, but it's not an accident either. We always do a little bit of at least ancient movement. We always have some meditative pieces, and beyond that, it's kind of a grab bag of whatever comes up that day. But our practitioners are all master teachers or master practitioners, and so it's always something rich and deeply affirming and uplifting. Plant allies and medicine could come up, chakras and activation, heart-centered practice, healing practices, mantras, gratitude and forgiveness, spiritual protection, finding spiritual allies, auras, bodily knowing, and all kinds of stuff. We've got Catherine O'Shea, as always, gracious to come share her time with us, and deep messages and deep movement there. We have Alan Sisko back again. He's the priest and leader of the Red Lotus Temple, a longtime practitioner, a master teacher, all kinds of stuff. And he generally brings us the physical movement, the martial arts aspect, and some spiritual connections with that. And then this time we are lucky to have Chance Garden as our third presenter for the day. And Chance is going to bring, I'm not even sure what, but I'm very excited because he's a very intuitive healer and practitioner himself, and it's going to be amazing. So all of that is what you get for the price of a ticket, and I'll tell you here, it's not going to be published anywhere. It's only for listeners of the show, and only if you listen before that day, that you can get your final. If you still haven't got your ticket, but you're going to right now, then you have the ability to use the coupon code LAST MINUTE to get a special little discount to just nudge you over that finish line, because we want to see you there. We're so excited. People who are coming are excited. I'm excited, and I hope that you finally take the plunge and join us. And then I'll shut up about it now. But holy crap, is it going to be rad, just like every time. One more thing I want to show you over in the shop here that I just added today, and then we'll get into the content of the show. But in the shop, you know, I have Oregon Blessed jewelry. I have all the books that I sell straight from me with inscriptions. I have some art that I make. There's always clothes and merch with different designs we've done over the years, and also the Rogueways logo and the Middle Path logo. There is consultation I do for writing and for teaching, for education, and for all kinds of stuff. And then, of course, there's the tarot readings and the spiritual guidance and the ceremonies that I can do for people as well. But just added today, and it's sneakily hidden in the clothes and merch section, even though it's something I create myself to share with you. It doesn't come from this third company, third hand sort of thing, but it's the Rogueways water bottle. And dude, I'm excited because people have seen me drinking out of this bottle They love it. They're like, I want a Rogueways water bottle. And I've always said, oh, I mean, I'll send you some stickers. Or now I'm like, oh, I can actually make this for you. Like, why did it take me that long to figure it out? I don't know. But if you are one of the people who has wanted one of these water bottles that I carry with me literally everywhere I go, this is how I drink my water. I like to do it out of glass because glass doesn't leach. You don't get any of the plastic bullshit in there. You don't get any of the sort of like remnants from whatever previous drink you had in there because it's glass. Glass is clean. Glass is great. And so it's a glass, beautiful bottle, 1 liter bottle. It's a little big for some people, but I love it because that keeps me hydrated. If I make sure I minimum drink this with, of course, adding a little Himalayan salt, a little baking soda, a little potassium, a little vitamin C, whatever you need to keep that water alive. You want to filter it, but then you want to add back in some of those beautiful minerals. But I drink at least that, then I think I'm pretty good for a day. So this is my water bottle I love that you see me drinking out of for the past 3 years. And if it's something you want, here it is now available for you in the shop. And I just want to share that with people. So let's get started. The thing that we always do on Middle Path is we do an exercise. And the exercise we're going to do today is we're going to actually practice with this energy that we're going to be talking about all episode long. We're going to see how we can use it this easily. Whether you've ever done anything like this before or not, whether you do it all the time, you can gather this energy and you can use it on yourself, in your body, in your energetic body, your mental body, your emotional body, your physical body. And we're going to do that right now. And so sadly, if you're over on YouTube right now, this is going to be our cutoff point. If you want to join us for this practice and for all the other good stuff that we're going to be doing tonight, I'm going to... Well, I hope the stream didn't cut off on Rockfin right when we're switching over there, but... Anyways, there's the link to jump over to Rockfin for those of you who aren't there yet. And if you are on Rockfin and anything ever happens, pressing refresh is usually a pretty good... wow, is this really how it is? I don't know. I think it's still going, but okay, yeah, it's still going. Sorry, sometimes I get a little confused on the Rockfin side of things. They do things a little bit differently over there. Anyways, come over to Rockfin right now to join us for this practice and for more Adeptus Astartes. Yes, drinking water tutorials are needed. Lori Wentz, Jenny B, love you all. Just head over to Rockfin with that link there or the one below. And otherwise, I will see you guys next time. All right, we're just on Rockfin only now. Love to my Rockfin fam. Hopefully we see a few more people showing up over here. And let's do this. So this practice is really, really simple. So don't let it get in the way that you feel like, oh, this is maybe too much, or I don't know how to gather this energy and use it to heal myself. You can call this energy anything you want. The many names we're going to go through today involve chi, prana, ki, even sometimes soul, spirit, biomagnetism, vril, orgone. I think I just listed all of them, but there's a lot. And there's probably even more. The force. There's so many ways you can describe this energy. It is literally everywhere, all the time, and everything. And if you want to participate, do. If you just want to listen and think about what it could be going on, you can do that too. Just a few minutes here just to get in our bodies, in our spots, present with ourselves, and starting to work on this energy. So it might be easiest for you if you stand. If you want to stand. It might be easiest if you sit, if you like to sit. Might be good if you're sitting to just... have your feet flat on the floor, have your spine kind of free. You can wiggle around a little bit just to kind of loosen, let go of anything that's hanging around in there. You can close your eyes if you want. I always do because it helps me. My mind is very visual. And so visual stimulation is distracting for me. So if I close my eyes, now I can be in the center of my own head, or in my throat, or in my heart, or in my abdomen, or down in my root, or in my legs, or in my arms, or I can be in all of it at once. I can notice my breath easier when I breathe in. When I breathe in, I'm actually breathing in this exact force. Whatever we want to call it, prana, chi, the light, We're breathing it in and we're breathing out anything we want. We can breathe out waste. We can visualize the light coming in and going throughout our whole body. And then when we breathe out, we can visualize darkness or muddiness or blockage just leaving. Or we can just visualize that inflow. The light comes in and we breathe out as just an out breath, and that's it. And we just breathe in more light each time. It's up to you. But what we're going to do today in this practice is we're going to focus on a couple things. One is our left hand. Put your mind in your left hand. And in your left hand is where you receive. Energy flows in through your left hand. You can visualize all your fingertips as little portals. And you can visualize either on in-breath or just a direct and constant flow. You can visualize light coming in your left hand. You can visualize it gathering there. Maybe some of it kind of skirts off through your body and skitters around, and that's cool, but most of it is just gathering in this hand, right? You breathe in and you feel that energy and you see it in your mind's eye coming in through all 5 fingers and just gathering in your hand. And you can feel it starting to gather there. You can feel this energy growing and growing and growing each breath or just constantly. Maybe it's stronger on the in-breath, but always seeping in. It's growing, it's growing. You can let your hand be limp, or you can hold it like you're holding a ball. Whatever's comfortable for you, that energy is still going to be sitting there. Gathering there. Gathering there, it's coming in, it's brightening. And now it needs to go somewhere because there's a lot of it gathering. And that station is going to remain there as a gathering station where the flow is coming in. All the light is coming in. But you're also going to notice it's starting to go throughout your body. Throughout your body. Throughout your body. It's going up your arm. It's always gathering there, but it's also coming up your left arm. With each beautiful deep breath. And it's coming up your shoulders. It goes up into your head. It goes down into your torso. It goes down into your left leg and back up. With each beautiful deep breath. And it goes down your right leg and back up and down your right arm. And your whole body is starting to fill with this light. And now your right hand is starting to tingle. All that energy you've been collecting in your left hand that's flown all throughout your body is now coming into your right hand. And your right hand is where you direct energy back out again. So all this energy that's all throughout your body and gathering in your left hand is now coming finally to your right hand, and now you can put it anywhere. You have this inflow and now you have the outflow. With every breath, it's stronger and stronger. It's gathering and gathering. Your whole body is glowing, but now you think, where is the energy needed in your body? Where is it needed in your body, and which body? So you can do a couple things at this point. One, you may already know. Your soul may be jumping and going, oh, here, right? Like you know where your needs are. So I always notice my throat would love more energy. So I'm going to take my right hand that's full of all of that energy and I'm going to hold it over my throat. And I'm going to see that energy is just so much stronger as it leaves my right hand because it's directed with intention. It has structure. It knows how to leave my right hand and go straight to my throat and bring my throat everything it needs. With every breath. You might feel tingling. You might feel warmth. You might feel the area receiving the energy have almost like discomfort or something as the energy is shifting, and that's all okay. All of that is good. All of that is good. And if you are someone who feels like you feel nothing, that is also completely okay. You're practicing. And you might not be someone who feels physically this energy movement, but you can see it with your mind's eye and you're directing it with your intention. And that is also enough. With every breath, you see this circuit. It's coming in through your left hand. It's gathering there. It's leaking and filling your whole body, and it's coming to your right hand for direction, and your right hand is sending it somewhere. Maybe there's somewhere else on your body, and you want to move to another place and send energy there. Maybe you want to play with how you can move the energy through your body with your right hand by brushing over a trouble spot and feeling that energy move through and release. Move through and release. Move through and release. Maybe this whole time you've been thinking, I don't know where to send this energy. And so maybe you can take your third eye, your imagination, and you can look over your body and see, is there anywhere that your mind's eye is drawn to? Maybe there's somewhere that looks a little bit murky, or maybe it's like flashing light at you, trying to get your attention. However it looks to you, if your mind is drawn there and your imagination is drawn there, breathe in, feel that circuit filling your whole body, coming through your left hand and going out your right hand, and just put your hand there. You can just hover over it, sending the energy to it. You can do that moving motion where you're kind of washing along the top of it or side of it, moving the energy through it, unblocking whatever was blocked there. Or you can physically touch it. There's nothing wrong with that. You might feel even more energy. You might feel heat. You might feel all kinds of things. And you can also do this with intention. So last thing, let's choose something that's not in our physical body, but it's in our mental body, or it's in our emotional body. It's something that we're aiming for, or something we're trying to release from the past. And you can maybe put it somewhere in your body if you'd like, or you can just hold it right in front of you in your mind's eye. Maybe it's right in front of you, just like my computer is actually in front of me. I'm going to place this intention or this thing that needs healing right in front of me in my mind's eye. I'm going to give it an image so I can visualize it easier. I'm going to breathe that light in again, feel it gathering in my left hand. I'm going to take all the light left in my left hand and push it through my body into my right hand and then into that intention that's right in front of me. Felt all that beautiful light I had accumulated go into this intention. I saw it fill up with light. I'm just going to breathe one more time. I'm going to give thanks to myself for being present in my own body and for teaching myself and practicing working with this energy in the universe. I'm going to thank that energy for always being available to anybody, anywhere, at any time. And to all of you for being here with this practice, because I really know. Oh no. I hope everybody saw that. I'm not sure if it crashed and no one saw anything or if everybody saw everything. Well, I'm going to stop. Oh, wait, maybe I'm not. Well, anybody who is watching right now, please let me know if you saw none of that, all of it, or don't even know what's going on right now. Holy crap, 109 degrees in Chico. Rebecca, I'm so sorry. That's awful. I'm also really hoping that you all actually were here with that practice. Oh, did you get any of that practice, or was that all lost? Oh, you're just saying you refreshed and it worked when it did go out. I hope that's true of everyone. I hope everybody's still with us and got the benefit of that practice. It was really good for me. And it's something, again, just like every practice. Oh, good. All good. Like every practice, you can use this anywhere, anytime. You can modify it to meet your needs, right? Sometimes it's cheating a little, right? But sometimes I'm like, all right, let's, this energy flow is going to come in my left hand. I'm going to use my right hand to have it send out to this intention, but I'm actually really need to get this thing done, like driving. So if that can just be going on in the background, that's all good. And I might sit there and kind of still put energy into it, but not necessarily be able to like move my hands around or do any, you know what I mean? You can just play with this stuff because it's everywhere, and your body and your mind and your soul were meant to work with it. So, oh, good. You guys saw the whole thing. Makes me feel better. Oh, and you've already got fires going. Yes, perfect. Of course. Of course we do. So another thing that we can do with stuff like this, and I actually think it's safer to do these types of things in groups. I also think it's best to be as intentional, or I should say as specific as possible. But for example, if you had a group of people who was in a fire affected area, then you could all get together and practice gathering this energy. There's other ways to gather it. Coming in through the left hand and going out through the right hand is sort of some standard, but you can also do when Chance was here one of the times. Sorry, I'm really being messed with right now. I hope you guys are still able to see this, but it's getting really weird. Yes, go live. Oh, we're already live. Why are you asking me to go live? I hope it's fixed. Anyways, when Chance was on, we did something that a lot of people also start with, which is just using both hands facing each other. And on the in-breath or the out-breath, gathering energy. And you can feel it sort of like it starts to have an energy and a magnetism and like a physicality to it. And then you can put that anywhere in your body or in your intention, just like we practice. So there's different ways. But let's jump into the content. I'm just going to hope that everybody can still see me and hear me. So we're going to start with Franz Mesmer. And Franz Mesmer, if I'm saying his name right, died in 1815, so he was a while ago, but he was one of the people who come up with this idea of mesmerism. And he's Mesmer, so that makes sense, right? Now we know where mesmerize comes from, is this guy, if you didn't already know. And it's interesting because he actually attributed this ability to mesmerize people to this power or this force called animal magnetism. Animal magnetism. He said he could cure disease with animal magnetism, just like people right now say they can cure disease with things like Reiki or all sorts of energy work, right? It was trendy and fashionable for a time among the elite, although, of course, we know that we say now there's no such thing as animal magnetism and that he was a pseudoscientist. This is, of course, what we say about anyone who doesn't fit the traditional view, even though we've got so much materialist data that shows that things like this are happening, are real, and do, in fact, correspond with even materialist views of the universe in many ways. But because, I don't know, Rockefeller and their media haven't come out and said that this is a real thing, then we have to call it pseudoscience and get rid of it. We can have all the peer-reviewed journal science studies that we want, and still it's never going to be accepted as mainstream science. So we just have to let go of that and start looking at things ourselves, which we're really good at doing here on Rogueways and Middle Path. But hypnosis is something that the materialists will recognize as real. And it's similar to what Mesmer was talking about when he said we have animal magnetism and the ability to affect people with our mind. But they just have to break it down into something that seems less magical, I guess. And hypnosis, they say it's about timing, and it's about visuals, and it's about distraction, and it's about reducing our brainwaves. I shouldn't say reducing, settling brainwaves into a state that is more receptive, closer to sleeping, and all of this stuff. But when it comes down to it, it's not really that different from what Mesmer was talking about. He actually proposed mechanisms for this. It had to do with our literal magnetic electric field, which is interesting, especially from what we know now. But animal magnetism was one of these things that touches on this idea that there is a field that exists, and that energy and our direction and our intention in some way can direct this field across distances, in ways that otherwise materialist science doesn't really accept. So just I don't know, just like there's people who attributed things in the past to spirit that are later attributed to other things, it could be similar to that. And some people make that like some way that they can dismiss all of this, and other people look at that and say, well, yeah, if we once thought it was spirit but now we can explain it better, that doesn't mean that these things aren't real. It means that perhaps we'll be able to explain it better someday, and we probably shouldn't just dismiss everything. So anyway, so he's most well known for his ability to hypnotize, teach hypnotism, and describe hypnotism. But again, he talks about other aspects of this, that it's not just like a trick of timing and brainwaves and like tricking people, which I think most of us kind of associate with hypnosis. Is like, oh, we'll make you get up on stage and think you're a chicken and start balking. And things like that. He is saying this actually implies that there is something that can cross distances, cross space, and from our intention be able to affect things. It's just only really cool to talk about hypnosis when you talk about him, because that's the only aspect of his work that is still acceptable. So I guess that's sad. You know, if you were him and all that happened is that you sort of helped the field of hypnosis, but all the other ideas you had were like dropped, then that would suck. But animal magnetism and mesmerism still exist in the minds of some people, and they still try to connect it to other long traditions, which we're going to get into today, of other aspects that are other ways that we describe these things. So it's interesting, and I keep seeing this word lately, vitalist, right? The vitalist theory of mesmerism and hypnosis. Well, I found out that there's a new camp. I used to think it was just the materialist versus the non-materialist, but now I know it's the materialist versus the vitalists, which is an interesting way to describe it. The materialist, I mean, because it's more accurate, really, right? The materialists think there's literally only matter. There's literally only physical things that we can touch and measure and see. And the vitalists say, there's actually something else that's much harder to measure. Maybe you can measure it and detect it, but it's much harder because it's not what we would generally call matter. It's an energy that's either like such a high frequency or wavelength or something that it's just beyond our ability to really perceive it. Just like there's light outside of the visible spectrum, and we could guess light outside of the even spectrum that we could measure, let alone see with our naked eye, that there's other energies that are beyond that as well. Sound, like light, all of it. Who knows what else, right? There's all kinds of things going on that maybe we're not sure, and that makes this a vital universe. It's filled with life. It's not just dead, empty matter that accidentally like globbed together and started moving. There's something else going on. So the vitalist versus the materialist makes sense to me. I like that actually description, and it's been popping up more and more in the things I'm looking at. So mesmerism and hypnotism, of course, is the most famous aspect of Mesmer's work. But I like this vital fluid and animal magnetism stuff. The vital fluid, it's interesting because a lot of these different things we're going to look at today have fluid. A lot of the practices have fluid and the waters of life and these aspects of something fluid and liquid that is the creator or generator of some of these energies, which is very interesting, especially when you think about, space, what we call empty space, as possibly some sort of fluid, for lack of a better word. Plasma, it's kind of fluid-like, right? Ether, maybe a little bit of aspects of fluidity to it. So it's interesting to think that fluid, vital fluid, had a part in this early otherwise Western materialist sort of guy, Mesmer's, thinking about these things. It's also interesting how that's described. So modern philosophy has admitted a plenum, or a universal principle of fluid matter, which occupies all space and that has all bodies moving in the world, abound with pores. This fluid matter introduces itself through the interstices and returns backwards and forwards, flowing through one body by the currents which issue therefrom to another, as in a magnet, which produces that phenomenon which we call animal magnetism. This fluid, okay, and I also want to point out the yin-yang aspect of what he just said, because we're going to get to that soon too. So just keep that in mind, that he's describing that too here, maybe on accident, or maybe because he's also studied those things and he's trying to translate it to a Western mind. But anyway, as in a magnet, which produces that phenomenon, which we call animal magnetism. This fluid consists of fire, air, and spirit. So keep this in mind too, as we always come back to these elements. And if you just watched the last episode of Middle Path, where we talked about the number 5, this is like the perfect flow into this foray that we're in today. Accidentally, I didn't plan it this way, it just happens to connect this well. But we talked a lot about the 5 elements and other aspects of 5, and here we are. It's going to be integral in today's talk too. Other fluids tends to an equilibrium. Therefore, it is easy to conceive how the efforts which the bodies make towards each other produce animal electricity, which in fact is no more than the effect produced between 2 bodies, one of which has more motion than the other. Here's that yin-yang, positive, negative, waveform, all the things which we know now actually are the best at describing material reality. He's describing them here in this energetic effect. A phenomenon serving to prove that the body which has most motion communicates to the other until the medium of motion becomes an equilibrium between the 2 bodies, and then this equality of motion produces animal electricity. So keep in mind too, this balancing effect he's talking about, this effect where the body with more motion is affecting the body with less motion. If you think about this in terms of intention, imagine going into a room and you're like pumped, you're like radicalized, you're like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in there, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make it happen. And all the people in the room are just like sitting there like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what I want. Just kind of sitting here. And you come in with that much force. Their minds, their energetic bodies, everything about them is going to instantly be aware of you, not just because you just entered the room, but because you came in with all of this, right? You've like primed up all the electricity, all the energy and all the motion, and now they're sitting there waiting to receive. It's the same anytime we have like a speech happening or like an idea that there's a hierarchy going on or anything else. That's all the more motion. That's like the yang, right? And then the yin is the receptive, less motion, waiting to be affected, right? And we all have yin yang. We all have more or less of both. But it's interesting to see how all of these principles tie in with what he's talking about. Again, accident? I don't know. Maybe he's actually a genius. Maybe he's just translating. According to an anonymous writer of a series of letters published later on, animal magnetism can cause a wide range of effects ranging from vomiting to what is termed a crisis. The purpose of the treatment inducing the crisis is to shock the body into convulsion in order to remove obstructions in the humoral system that were causing sickness. So again, we're going back to this idea that there's other things besides little bacteria or viruses or whatever causing sickness, that sometimes it's your humor, or sometimes it's the planets, or sometimes it's the spirit, and it's all these other things, and that someone with the intention could come in and instigate energy flow to you, which might be shocking to your system and might cause vomiting and convulsions, but will also clear via this crisis, via this energy infusion, some of the blockage, some of the energetic blockage. It's really interesting to sort of compare this to all sorts of other things that go on much later in time, like Reiki or like energy work and like things like this. So of course there's skepticism, and then there's people who just are gonna shit on it, and now he's a pseudoscientist and now we can't talk about it. But we know this has all been making a huge comeback as well, and even that has its downfalls because people just run with things and kind of ruin them through their egotistic bullshit guruism. But this is available to any of us. This is not something that was like, oh, a trained specialist could finally maybe someday understand mesmerism and magnetic animal magnetism and use it on other people. It's like we just did that practice. Anybody can gather this energy, gather this intention, gather the visualization for it, and then expel this energy. And there's lots of traditions that teach us even more specifically how to, step by step. But I don't know if we need this final one. I think we kind of covered it, so I'm going to skip to the next thing. I like at least this definition by Encyclopedia Britannica says animal magnetism is a presumed intangible or mysterious force that is said to influence human beings, because I think the presumption goes both ways. We can presume this might be real, but they also have to presume that it's not, and no one knows. So presume is the right word. And then, of course, they talk more about hypnotism than anything else. At least they do summarize by saying Mesmer believed it is an occult force or invisible fluid emanating from his body, and that more generally the force permeated the universe, deriving especially from the stars. If you think about stars, they're like etheric conglomerations of plasma, which is that first step down from the ether, and they're generating all this energy and like kind of sending it out in all kinds of ways. So it makes sense that that would be a place you would kind of associate with where this comes from. But obviously, we also have to point out that we sometimes use this to mean sex appeal for some reason. Because we have to ruin everything and debase it. We can't just have it work and be flowing through the society mimetically. Or else people might know things. So anyways. We're going to move on now to Reichenbach. Baron Karl von Reichenbach. This is not Reich. This is not Orgone. This is a different guy. Just happens to have a sort of similar sounding name. But why did I choose this page? Did something disappear from this page? Okay. Oh, I guess just because it has this very simple definition. This guy is a scientist famous within numerous disciplines. He developed the disproven concept of odic force. Is it disproven, or is it just another thing that's called pseudoscience because people won't accept all the vast amounts of evidence in science that actually has been accumulated to describe whatever you want to call this thing? But I liked that there was this odic force because I had never heard it described in this way. All these other ones we're talking about today, I have technically heard of it many times. I've just never clumped them all together until recently. But this one was new to me, odic force. And he named it this because he associates it with Odin. So any of you heathens out there who are lovers of Odin and the northern peoples and their rich history and traditions will enjoy this description, I think, of this eternal universal energy that flows through everything and everyone as odic force. Odic force. Let's see what they say about odic force. The odic force is an all-encompassing vital energy force similar to the idea of chi or prana or orgone. It's espoused by various philosophies or new age belief systems. So see, this is that new age like little box that they want to put things in. The groupthink involved in that and the psychological operation involved in that is immense. This is why we need to dispel with it. Anyways, the odic force is thought to combine many theories, magnetism, electricity, and heat, among other concepts. And this Reichenbach is the dude who developed his ideas about this and named it the odic force. But of course, as we've seen and we'll see, there's all kinds of ways to describe it and all kinds of people working on it, all kinds of names. But he was a renowned scientist. It's important to say that he had many advances in industry and sciences, especially in chemistry, and for his theories of the Earth's magnetism. So he contributed to these fields in ways that people still appreciate, and yet this specific tenet of his ideas has been dismissed. So we see this over and over again, that there's these people who are acceptable and they're accepted and they're like not trying to toe the line. They're just working within, these ideas that are safe. And then they find something that makes them reach out and stretch into another dimension of these things and try to describe this thing that they've noticed, that they have evidence for, that they can try to describe and start to explain how it works. And once they go there, now they're quacks, now they're pseudoscience, and now they're dismissed no matter what they did before. It's very sad. But his odic force has to do with his foray into psychology, and he's trying to discover where this energy comes from in the people he studies. Sometimes people had night terrors or sleepwalking or somnambulism, as it's called, insomnia. And he noticed that sometimes it tended to occur more commonly with the full moon. So he noticed if they had this really dark room and they couldn't tell if the moon was full or that the light was coming in or whatever, that they slept better and had less of those problems than people who had that moonlight amplified, like the windows are open and they're, shining in on them. So it's interesting that he associates it with the moon and with Odin. And why not, right? If we're thinking of forces that affect the fluids and we're thinking of this as some sort of fluid motion, just like animal magnetism described, then the moon would have an effect on it, as we see it tends to on bodies of water and women who are very fluid and emotional often by tendency. And that's why emotion is associated with water often as well. So he was observing all this and playing around with it. And he suggested that perhaps the magnetism and the energy from the moon was affecting especially the nervous system, maybe through magnetism. So again, back to that magnetic. And again, it makes sense why people jump to magnetics, because we see electricity and magnetism and EMF fields working at a distance and seemingly to be able to travel through, nothing. Without like a wire, so just they're traveling through air and whatever, you know what I mean, but seems like it's going through nothing, and so that seems kind of magical. And so if people would jump to this as an explanation, it makes a lot of sense. Whether or not it actually has to do with magnetics is another question, but I tend to think everything has to do with positive, negative, and the movement between those two forces, so it makes sense to me. So odic forces, that he believed that some people could sense these odic forces or this odic energy, and that therefore they had this special ability, and that they could maybe even detect a plane of existence or energies that the average person is unable to observe. We kind of know this is true now too. There's people who are sensitive to all kinds of things. Again, even if you want to stick with materialist science, there's people who can see more colors than other people. It's not about like your vision, like needing glasses or not. They just literally have more and different receptors that not everyone else has. We know there's people who can hear things that other people cannot even detect. There's all kinds of examples of this, rather. So it makes sense too that maybe that's its whole own kind of plane of existence as he's describing it, and that people who are sensitive to the odic force can tap into that. Again, these are all just this different words for the same thing in all of these places. He also interestingly talked about how odic force could be stored in crystals. And this is, I'm sure, part of why people started charging their crystals with the moon. It all connects, right? And so some people still obviously practice this again. It is kind of attributed back to this time in this guy. I'm sure there's other people who also talked about crystals and their various uses, so I'm not going to say it's only him, but interesting. So, because his experiments haven't been replicated, and we can talk all day long about morphogenetic fields and why these things aren't replicated and replicatable sometimes, but because of that, he's been dispelled to the world of pseudoscience. And let's all start calling Johnny a baron so he can be called a baron. Let's all just be barons and baronesses and whatever we would like to be. So yeah, the odic force is how he called it. Again, he believes it's part of our nervous system, that there's something about it that's magnetic and something about it that works on fluids. Just see these themes over and over again. So then we start to get into Reich's orgone, another different scientist of a different time, working with the same sorts of struggles, trying to describe these things that other scientists had tried to describe as well. Everyone can see the evidence of these. These people are geniuses who are trying to figure out how to explain it, right? How do we break it down? How do we understand it? Non-locally is one of the keys. Why does it do that? Non-locality just means that it's not right here, right now, right? If you can know things from a distance, or you can send energy over a distance, and that is non-local. And we've talked a lot about on this show the nature of non-locality of consciousness, how it's very obvious that our consciousness is not in our brain. There's people who have lost 90% of their brain matter and still kept all of their personality and ability and memories. And so if you think it's in your brain, you're probably wrong. But that this non-locality of consciousness and perhaps an actual energy transfer might be what enables psychic abilities, remote viewing, and things of that nature. It makes sense to start to try and describe that, right? Like I said, we can do studies, we can show all kinds of information, travels between people or across the world, like through time and space. And we want to be able to describe what that is. So Wilhelm Reich is just another guy who tried to explain what this is, but he describes it as orgone energy. I don't think I meant to have this in this place, so we're also going to skip this. But this is just a really rich site that, again, just like I often do, I want to show people, I want to share it with people if they want to dive much deeper into this Odic force, which I myself have never heard about, again, until I started putting all of these different forces together and wanting to look at them all together. But holy crap, all of this is through chapter 16, just on Odic forces, and they've even broken down the paragraphs into numbered paragraphs, so you can really do a deep study on this. I love that he calls it the nature of odd. Isn't it interesting? Because it is odd, and it's also Odin related and Odic. I just love the different names and the different ideas these people grappled with to try and make sense of this. But they describe all these things that we've probably heard about, right? Like he's describing how you can have someone hold their hand up, and the vast majority of the time they're going to be able to tell when someone else's hand is in front of their hand, even with their eyes closed or completely blindfolded or behind a barrier that's impenetrable, and all of these things, right? Or people who can hold their hands over an image and way more often than chance guess what the image is. Things like that. He's going to go through all that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to be able to share that with you guys. But here's a real life study that anyone could do. I've shared this before multiple times in the past, but if you've never seen it, it's worth watching. It's pretty short, and I'll skip through some of it. But basically, we have this platform that is movable, right? This suspended platform, right? And so it can move, right? And we have all these metronomes, and you can see they're being started all at different times. 100% of them are started at different times, right? So they're all clicking. You can hear it. Multiple clicks going on. None of them are in alignment with each other. So this is a 4-minute long video, but let's just jump to a minute 14 or so. You can already hear the more regularity. Still not all together, but how are they becoming more regular? How is there so much more synchronicity? Let's jump again another minute. Now you can really hear how they're starting to line up. Still not perfect, but very close. And let's jump to the end. They're almost perfect now. And if you're watching, you can see how they're very much aligned. You may ask yourself, do they have to be in lines like that? No, they don't. They can be anywhere. You can start them at any time. They will always synchronize. Pretty amazing. Especially if you're starting to wonder. Now we see, obviously, there's this substrate. They're all sitting on this. It's very clear to us that their vibrations, their movements are being channeled into this substrate, this board they're sitting on, and that is taking all of those energies in and then somehow redistributing them out, and they're all coming together in that way. That's obvious to us, right? But now you extrapolate from this and you think about these forces we're talking about, whether it's orgone from Reich, or whether it's Odic forces from Reichenbach, or whether it's animal magnetism from Mesmer, they're all doing the same thing. They're trying to figure out, why would one human from another human who aren't connected physically in any way we can see, how would they synchronize like this, right? And now we can start to guess, based on this material demonstration here, that perhaps there's some kind of substrate, and perhaps it's not the ground we're standing on like it is for the metronomes, but there's something that is connecting us, and it's something that we have not yet been able to name accurately or perceive, except in these ways where there's some people who are sensitive to it, or some people who practice gathering this energy within themselves and using it, or other ways that we can tell that it's happening, but we still don't know exactly what is this. Right? If you were here for the last episode, for the episode of fives, then you already probably have a really good guess that it's got something to do with plasma, which is liquid-like, or ether, which is also maybe liquid or air or all of the elements in one, depending on how you look at things. And then maybe that is everywhere. And that because we are all in that substrate, literally swimming in it and living in it, that we can do these things. Very interesting to think about women's cycles that all sync up with one another if you put enough women together for long enough, or even if they're not physically together. I've heard of people who spend a lot of time, now that we've had this whole experiment of, everyone Zooming instead of working together in the same building, for example, that they will start still syncing up even just from like Zoom meetings or talking a lot throughout the day. So it's not even about being physically close to each other. It's about being some other form of close to each other. We can also know that human breath and heartbeats also sync up when people are singing, which you might at first think, well, of course they would. You're singing the same song. Your breath is already going to have to take breaths at certain moments or whatever. But no, that's not true. People take breaths whenever the fuck they want. It's always different. There's not just like a uniform time. There's not a uniform breath size. There's not a uniform lungs, right? And people aren't always even singing the exact same words, right? People can be on different, whatever you call that, choruses or whatever, and they're all singing slightly different things, and they still have the phenomenon of their heartbeats syncing up and their breaths syncing up. So again, it's not about some physical thing, or if it is, it's a physical aspect of reality we haven't yet perfectly nailed down. But all the spiritual traditions going back thousands and thousands of years seem to have it down. And here's one example of a practitioner of some spiritual traditions who is going to show you exactly how physical you can get with this energy in ways that are probably shocking to people, and ways that all these materialists just dismiss entirely and never investigate further because it doesn't fit their reality. But we can see it over and over again. This is just one of millions of examples you can find of really obvious physical effects of people who say that they are gathering this energy of various different names and then using it. So here's one guy.
Just like this.
Our sound recordist, Simi, was skeptical at first.
So he's like shocking her through, not like the belly moving, but the energy coming out from his belly. But there's going to be even more exciting
Later, he told us that anybody
examples.
could learn this. God had given us all the yin-yang polarity, but it takes discipline and meditation to awaken and control it.
Notice he again talks about yin-yang polarity, that difference. We're going to see this over and over again, that it has something to do with that positive and negative, that absence and presence, and the movement between them.
And you must be very aware of your emotions. This energy can be dangerous. It can kill as well as heal. Then he asked for our newspaper.
So this is an unedited, unclipped film. He's got some newspaper. And you just see it light on fire and burn up. He's just like, yep. Like he's not even...
Whatever he had done to our newspaper, it's how he'd healed my eyes that made me wonder. What do these people living in the shadows of the volcanoes still know?
So, this is from a really awesome video, actually, and it's one of many, of Robert Seppeher. I'm probably not saying his name correctly. He's a pimp. And he's found this clip and included it in his video, which I just shared in the chat. I think. Maybe I didn't. I don't know why this stream has so much problems, but I'm guessing it's because we're not supposed to be empowering people to be able to use this energy for themselves. But I don't even know if anybody can see or hear me or see my comments. So that's unfortunate. I'm just going to take a second to check. Like, what the hell? Now it's saying no one's here. Making me sad. Like, what is this bullshit? All right, again, there's troubles with the stream, technical difficulties. I don't know why. I always assume, and I know assumption is dangerous, but I always assume if there's this much trouble that means the message is super powerful. At least I can comment now. I think it's working again. If it cut out, thanks for still being here. And if it didn't, good. Glad. Okay. So I'll go back to hoping that this continues to work. And again, this is just one example, and it's a pretty astonishing one. You see, again, uncut, unedited, that he just gathers this force in his hands, and then he sends it out, and he burns a paper to a crisp. The people who are making the film share that he's healed them. The guy mentions he's healed his eyes. We see the sound technician who was like, yeah, right, you can't do shit, get shocked with his energy coming out of his belly. And we can also go and find all kinds of videos. We can find monks who are melting the snow around them with their meditation. We can see people with swords running at monks who are meditating, full on just running, sharp sword. They'll show you it cutting things in half really easily right before then, and then just being stopped by the monk's energetic field. They can't run them through. There are so many examples of this type of energy being marshaled by people and using it, and especially over in the a lot of the Asian traditions, more so than the Western traditions. And the Western traditions have all of these hidden within them. We just don't talk about it a lot. But another description of this energy is prana. And this is the one that's most alive and well today. It's the one that's hardest to discount as pseudoscience, because it is termed in these it's couched in these spiritual terms and practices. And it's a lot harder for our Western world to dismiss spiritual traditions and practices than it is to dismiss science that we don't like. So prana still exists in practices all over the place. I'm sure you've heard of it. People use it all the time. And prana is basically translated to primary energy. So if you think about all the things we've been talking about and you call them primary energy, it makes a lot of sense. This is the substrate energy. This is the energy that's in everything, that everything is made of. It's literally everywhere, all of the time. Sometimes people translate it as breath or vital force. I like the translation of breath because with our breath and the focus on our breath, we are noticing the movement of this energy in our body, even though it's not air, right? It's the movement itself and the energy that's within that. It has creative power. It's the master form of all energy working at every level of our being. It's very profound, and when we've been kind of pussyfooting around it this whole time, this is getting kind of into the meat of it. They also talk about 5 pranas, which I didn't know, and I wish I would have known for our last episode about the number 5. But of course there's 5 pranas, because there's 5 everything. There's 5 states of matter, there's 5 states of being, there's 5 pranas, there's 5 of everything. It's very human to be able to access and understand the 5 aspects of things. But they name them all here, and we're going to get into them a little bit. But it also talks about how these 5 pranas are in your body as far as your body goes. They're in the thoracic area between the larynx and the top of the diaphragm. So it's right in this area, which is interesting because there's a lot of, we're going to get into later Middle Path episodes about this area and the energy there and how women have a special role in that area and how so many women, much more than men, experience thyroid and issues here. Physically in this world today, right now. I'm one of them. You might be too. So that's very interesting too. So expanding this life force, working with this life force, a lot of yoga trends are actually around this practice of working with this energy. It's just kind of lost because we've turned it into just an exercise. And some yoga teachers and some practitioners do still focus on this. And that's cool because it really is a huge part of it. But while we're on the 5 pranas, I just wanted to look really close at what they are because we just had this whole dive into the number 5 and how it is so central and important to everything. And look at these 5 types. So there's prana vayu. I'm probably going to say these things wrong, but bear with me. Centered in the third eye, and its energy expands down into the chest. It's inwards and upwards. It nourishes the brain, the eyes, and the senses. It's considered to be the fundamental energy from which the other four are created, which is interesting because we talk about the third eye being the seat of your soul. And so if you're imagining the energy coming there from these realms beyond us or above us, or beyond and above our normal senses, they come into that seat of our soul, and then they start trickling down and energizing the rest of our body. It's very interesting. Apana Vayu is located in the pelvic floor. So now we're going all the way down to our root. But it pervades the lower abdomen. It flows downwards and out. Thus, it's associated with digestive organs and reproduction, and also elimination of waste from our body, right? Downwards and out. So that could be our cleansing. Vyana Vayu centers on the heart and lungs, but it flows throughout the whole body. So we talk about our heart chakra being like the portal of energy coming in and filling our whole body and working with all these different aspects of self. That also aligns with this, which is very interesting too. Flows from the middle of the body to the outside, associated with circulation and assisting function of other types of prana. Udana Vaya is located in the throat. Its flow circulates the head and neck. It's associated with the functions of speech, expression, and growth. Makes sense for that area and that chakra too. Samana Vaya centers on the navel. Its flow moves from the periphery of the body in towards the center. So from the periphery of your body in, and it's needed for the assimilation of all things, including air, nutrition, experiences, feelings, and thoughts. So especially if you were going to be processing maybe old traumas or old energies, or just working on, really being with your body and allowing it to do what it needs, you might focus on that. Very interesting to know the 5 types of prana. I had no idea. Maybe you didn't either. And I also liked looking at this really cool image that just shows you those 5 pranas that we just described and how they move and how they, take place in your body. And so that's interesting too. I really just wanted to touch on that because it was a neat visual. But I also wanted to remind you, when we talked last week about the 5 chakra system, there's all sorts of different chakra systems, and in a Sanskrit and Tibetan Buddhist tradition, we talked about the crown chakra, the throat chakra, the heart chakra, the navel chakra, and the root chakra, and how interesting that those align perfectly with the 5 pranas. Perfectly in process, in function, and in placement in the body. Very interesting. That can't be an accident. So I just wanted to remind you of that last week's note about that. So we're also then going to talk about Qi. We can't talk about this all without talking about Qi, and Qigong is one of the probably best ways for any of us, and I am saying this without being someone who practices this regularly, it's probably the best way for any of us to actually learn to feel our Qi and be able to direct and guide our Qi and work with our Qi or our prana or our, what if we called it elsewhere, orgone, which I breezed through and hopefully nobody minded, but I figure we're all very familiar with that. Maybe that was a mistake, but anyways, or animal magnetism or whatever else you want to call it, or odic force. Qi Gong might be the way. So Qi is energy. They just leave it as energy, right? It's that simple. And they also translate it to breath, air, or energy, just like prana similarly can be described in this way. So very, very similar direct translation. But they point out in the West, we might be more comfortable with electromagnetic or bioenergy as the term. So it's interesting. We're now going to throw those into the mix. Those are the sort of materialists, like apologist people's need to call it those things. And that's okay. Sometimes we need that, where sometimes we come from this materialist background. So that's cool. Though this life energy is invisible, it infuses our entire universe. It can revitalize us, prepare us for challenge. If we have a strong Qi, we have a strong life force. Or maybe we're very vibrant. Maybe people say, oh, she lights up the room. Maybe that's what they're talking about. Our stamina, confidence, our positive energy increases when we work with this. Conversely, people with weak Qi have difficulty resisting sources of negativity. You might become depressed. You might become anxious. You might lose interest in things and people. And so perhaps you want to work on your Qi if you're one of those people. And I have those tendencies, so I do work on my Qi. I just didn't know that I was working on my Qi necessarily. I didn't think about it in those terms. I'm getting better at that. Qi is in our blood, our bones, our skin, our vital organs. Everything uses this energy to link the mind, body, and spirit. Mind, body, spirit, and emotion, I might add. It impacts our dreams, our emotions, our thoughts. It exists beyond our physical body. It has a natural rhythm. So we go back to that yin yang, that rhythm, that positive negative, breathing in and out. So they suggest many ways that you can find your qi and take control of it if you haven't yet. One is acupuncture. Interestingly, acupuncture has many materialist measurements backing it up, and so more and more materialists can accept things like acupuncture, but acupuncture actually stems from the understanding of qi, and so it's an interesting one. There's Tai Chi, or Tai Chi, and that's a moving meditation. If you've ever done it, it's kind of like slow. It's maybe similar to Qigong, where you're gathering this Qi energy and practicing moving it around and working with it. Super cool. All these things are easy to pick up. Again, yoga, but especially yoga where people have the awareness that that's the goal, is to improve your Qi's movement and circulation and presence. Many types of meditation. Obviously, we just did one. We've done many on this show that can improve the gathering of your odic force. Breathing exercises are a very simple way. Remember, when you're just present with your breath and your movement, it's tapping you into the movement of energies, the yin and the yang, the in and the out, and just being present with that. And as simple as that is, that can be very powerful. And of course, Qigong, I think, is perhaps one of the best ways that I know of, just because people who practice it tend to be able to burn paper and stuff. The Wu Qi posture, I maybe have never heard of, but standing with your feet positioned beneath your shoulders, bending the knees slightly and keeping your lower back straight. Relax and take slow, deep breaths. That's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. This is part of Qigong. And then they just go through some different movements, but really I would need a video, and I think probably so would you. And so, but yeah, if you use energy healing through gathering your qi and learning to work with it, you can have all kinds of, again, measurable materialist improvements, such as improving your breathing, heart rate, and blood pressure, increasing your energy and vitality and peace of mind, improving your mood, gaining better control over your emotions, and improving your overall health, agility, flexibility, and reducing inflammation. These are all measurable. They've done studies, and you can find them and convince your materialist friends that vitalism is true. But qi is universal. Qi embraces all manifestations of energy, from the most material aspects of energy, such as the earth beneath your feet, your computer, and the flesh and blood, to the most immaterial, light, movement, heat, nerve impulses, thought, and emotion. Life, it is said in Chinese medical classics, is a gathering of qi. So again, we're talking about if there's 5 elements, and the ether is kind of everything. Maybe the ether is qi and is prana. And then it gathers, and the first thing it gathers into is plasma. And plasma is like the sun and the stars and those strands of energy throughout the universe. Electrons, maybe photons, maybe sound packets at the tiniest form, if we can quantize them. And then we go beyond that, and an even more concentrated amount of this qi might be, now I'm trying to go through the phases of matter, like gas, right? And then a more concentrated version might be this fluid, like liquid. And then a more concentrated version, the most concentrated, would be this physical, this solid. And that's all the states of matter. So we can apply that again to this idea of qi, gathering energy. And of course, we always talk about, in each of these that we've touched on, this state of flux or movement. And the movement or the state of flux is primary to qi. It's in a continuous state of movement or flux as soon as it leaves the ether, transforming endlessly from one aspect of qi into another. It's neither created nor is it destroyed. Hey, where have we heard that before? It simply changes in its manifestation. So in order to talk about the relationships between various aspects and manifestations of qi within a given context, Chinese philosophy employs the concept of yin and yang. We can talk about it as positive and negative. We can talk about it as rest or movement. We can talk about it as the trough or the peak of a waveform. We can talk about it in all kinds of ways, but we have visualized it in the yin-yang symbol, and it's the easiest maybe for us to understand it that way. That everything is a whole, but all things are also relative. Are they faster or slower than the other thing? Are they more or less charged than the other thing? This also reminds us that nothing is permanent. Nothing is in this permanent sort of stasis state where it doesn't change. And that if you're talking about something as positive or negative, you also have to admit that this just is a temporary state. Just like life is a temporary state, death is a temporary state, all things are in movement and in flux. And so things can only be understood in relation to something else. This is that duality that is essential and present in everything. And it is an aspect of this energy in every time we look at it. It's a universal quality. I guess now I'm going back to Wilhelm Reich and orgone energy, thank God. Because it's worth talking about. The orgone energy is I think greatly misunderstood. But orgone energy really is just the same energy that we've been talking about. I think people think that orgone is like this special type of energy or that it can do special things that other energy can't or something. But really at its base, it is the same exact idea. Wilhelm Reich was trying to describe this thing that is ever present, that is everywhere, that you can gather and accumulate, as we see Qi practitioners, Qigong practitioners, and people who understand this doing, as we see energy healers doing. So we see all this evidence of all the time, this non-locality of this energy's ability to gather and create or dispel. And he wants to describe it, and he calls it orgone. You know? And then because he has some, just the nerve and the gall to associate it with sex, then that was his undoing. Which is unfortunate, because actually every tradition that has gone deeply enough into this has associated it with sex. As sexual energy always is associated with this. It's not an accident either. So it's unfortunate that in the West, just as our nudism episode has shown, people are incredibly uncomfortable with sex and nudity, and they cannot help themselves but debase the sexual energy and make it into something that is just about orgasm and fucking instead of something beautiful and something that's a creative force. So anyways, worth mentioning Reich. He talks about how perhaps these ancient megalithic structures all over the world were actually orgone accumulators or chi accumulators or prana accumulators or working with those energies. We've talked about Antiquitech and how it's like got sound healing built into it perhaps, and how it seems like people were using that. Well, sound healing is just another aspect of energy healing. It's the exact same thing. You just happen to be able to hear it, but it's still energy movement. It's still waveform. It's still the yin and the yang. It's still gathered and dispersed. It's still all of these things. And so maybe these ancient megalithic structures were also for those similar types of reasons. But we talk about how they're often covered in layers of organic and inorganic material. We often see that in many of these, that we have, some sort of stone and then maybe like wood or plant matter or some other less, not having the right words, but something like more like a mud or like a slurry or something like that. We even saw like mercury metallic type energy layers in some of these down in Central America. And so perhaps that's why they had things like that going on. Because remember, the basic structure of orgone is just organic, inorganic, organic, inorganic. You know, when I started making orgone, I did it just from my own understanding of orgone and my own spiritual guidance. And people were like, oh, that's not orgone. You don't have like a copper spiral in it. I'm like, well, I mean, that's cool. I like copper spirals a lot. I'm sure they're very neat. But you don't have to have a copper spiral to be orgone. You could literally grab a piece of metal and then put a sheet of cotton and then like more metal and then like a chunk of wood, and that's orgone, orgone accumulators. So anyways, he's describing how these ancient structures also have that, just so happen to have that same sort of structure or pattern, I should say, and that perhaps people were doing this. And we think, it's worth thinking about, especially since we think about Antiquitech and the sound healing thing. He says, I am well aware of the fact that the human race has known about the existence of a universal energy related to life for many ages. However, the basic task of natural science consisted of making this energy usable. This is the sole difference between my work and all preceding knowledge. He wants to make this energy usable. He wants to make it understandable. And of course, there's people who don't want to make it usable and understandable because if you can heal yourself, you can create energy, you can burn paper with your hands, or you can do all of these things, what would you need them for? What would you need any of them for? Any of it for? You wouldn't. He posits that there's things called bions, and this is the sort of quantized packet that materialists want. Vitalists, I guess, are trying to give these to materialists so that we can meet each other halfway. And so maybe there's a little quantized packet of information or energy called bion. Who knows? Who cares? I don't care. I know that this energy obviously exists, so I don't need someone to materialize it for me, materialistify it for me. But yes, like I said, Orgone, he had a lot of interesting, we could do many episodes just on Orgone and Reich, but he had many interesting experiments that seemed to show a lot of promise. He had these things called Cloudbusters. I've seen people with them. We're about to talk to Mitch, the Orgone guy, on Tuesday on Rogueways, I believe, about his Orgone and Cloudbusters. I've seen them work. They're amazing. I'm going to learn how to make them, hopefully from him on that day, and be able to add that to the shop and or give away what I can. Because the more of us are doing things like this, the less these chemtrailers and these world destroyers can function. So that'll be neat. But those are all from Reich and his Orgone energy studies. So, when they arrest someone, throw them in jail, and destroy everything they've ever done, just supposedly maybe because they had sex with someone or something, that's a bit much for someone who contributed all of this. Who knows if he was murdered or died by an accident, but obviously this is a suppressed information and technology. And of course, it's reported that many different UFOs would be around and respond to his Orgone devices. So I also have so many UFO sightings that I could never even list them all or describe them all. I described some of the most phenomenal of them, but I understand how someone who works with this energy could be attracting these energies or intelligences. He obviously, I think, thought they were literally from another planet. I don't agree with him, but I don't claim to know for sure either. I just have my own experiences to go off of. I still don't know if anyone can even see this show. Oh, man. So that's Orgone and Reich. Lots to go into there that we're not going to be able to touch on. The one that's most surprising and probably will blow people away if they're still able to even see this show is the Vril energy. And that is because, especially with anything Nazi related or World War II related, where hounded and killed for even talking about it. And Vril society within the Nazi party was the most esoteric and interesting weird shit that was going on. And we talk about Vril devices and all of this, but I, again, had never heard it described as just Vril energy. And that this is the exact same thing of all these other traditions we're talking about. All these other traditions, prana, chi, Orgone, I don't even know how many we've touched on so far now today. Animal magnetism, it's all the same stuff. I had not heard that Vril was also another descriptor for this type of energy. So that was very fascinating to me. And yeah, here it is described. Vril is the thready, living, glowing, generative energy which projects experiential space and matter. It is the living generator of the experiential universe. It's the exact same stuff that all these other scientists and people have been talking about, the Odic force, all of it. So all of these devices that the Nazis were able to make, as far as we know, as far as we're told, sometimes not told and have it hid it from us, all of those are reliant on understanding and manipulating this basic force of the universe. And that's fascinating. What if that was all the Nazis did wrong? I want to go into it someday in a full episode of how unlikely it is that the Nazis actually did what people say they did. How very unlikely, given materialist science and matter and physics, how very unlikely, not just slightly unlikely, but exceptionally crazily unlikely. And so why then are they so vilified and so hated? I'm just saying, just go with me. If you've never heard of this, who cares? Let it go. But just think of this one point. What if that is the real reason they were targeted and attacked, is that they had this Vril energy and this ability to use it. Telegraphy, conductors, Vril linkage, Vril archiforms, Vril connection, Vril telephony, Vril dendritic ground systems. All this stuff. You know who probably loved and used Vril? Probably Nikola Tesla. I bet if we really had access to everything he did, that he probably describes all these same things. And maybe there's people screaming right now like, yeah, we all have access still. You just didn't look. And maybe that's true. But I bet. Here's Lord Edward Bulwer Lytton talking about the coming race. Think about this in relation to the ideas that the Nazis were obsessed with race, and wonder if there's a slightly different thing going on with that than what we were told. I should call it electricity, except that it comprehends in its manifold branches other forces of nature, to which in our scientific nomenclature differing names are assigned, such as magnetism, galvanism, etc. And we can add all the things we've talked about tonight to that list. These people consider that in Vril they have arrived at the unity in natural energetic agencies, which has been conjectured by many philosophers above ground, and which Faraday thus intimates under the more cautious term of correlation. So here's another little thread, is that Faraday even talked about this, but had to hint and intimate instead of talk openly, which he probably saw what happened to all the other people who talked openly about it and decided to be a little cautious. But he called correlation. And here he says, I have long held an opinion, says that illustrious experimentalist, almost amounting to a conviction, in common, I believe, with many other lovers of natural knowledge, that the various forms under which the forces of matter are made manifest have one common origin, or in other words, are so directly related and mutually dependent that they are convertible, as it were, into one another, and possess equivalents of power in their action. He's saying exactly what we've been saying. Every state of matter is actually all from this one state of matter or being or whatever we can call it, which is that ether state that goes down into plasma, that goes down into gas, that goes down into liquid, that goes down into solid, or which is that Vril, or which is that biomagnetism, or which is that prana, or which is that odic force, or which is whatever you want to call it. Orgone, all of it. And that is what even he thought, even Faraday. So yeah, I'm sure Tesla also talks a lot about it too. It'd be fascinating to look into both of those. But just one more little piece is that Vril is all up in this. So Vril and free energy. Vril was known to these mystics as a natural and abundant energy, having disseminated its divine wisdom worldwide under many names. The Chinese referred to it as Qi, the Hindu as prana, the Japanese as Reiki. Albert Pike said, there is in nature one most potent force, by means whereof a single man, who could possess himself of it, and should know how to direct it, could revolutionize and change the face of the world. And that's in Robert Sepeher's Vril and Occult Free Energy. You've heard his name earlier tonight, too. He is a fascinating and wonderful person who you should absolutely go find more of. I spend any free time I have learning from him. Is mankind on the threshold of a new age of enlightenment? Well, maybe not, because all of this has been suppressed. But even Albert Pike is talking about it. This is that head top Freemasonic secret society sort of dude. He knew. But, you know, we can get into this whole thing now of this breakaway civilization that has access to this, that maybe the Nazis are still down under the earth and inner earth and hollow earth and Antarctica and all this shit. But every mystery school talks about this energy. Every single ancient tradition talks about this energy. All of these practices are focused on creating, harnessing, engendering, like magnifying this energy within yourself and being able to use it. It is not an accident that it is everywhere. And it's not an accident that it's all been so actively suppressed. Anytime they're suppressing things this hard, we have to understand how valuable it is. Some people talk about only accessing this through sexual tantra, which just means practice. But there's so many ways, so I just don't want people to get caught only in that aspect, because I think it can be sort of a trap. I think it can be used beautifully too. I just think there's not very many people who can do that very well because they get lost in it. Helena Blavatsky, who's a fascinating theosophical, people think she's evil and horrible, and some people think she's great and wonderful, and who cares? But she says, describe this vril energy as an ether stream that could be transformed into a physical force. There's ether again. The Philadelphia experiment is said to have been carried out using this type of energy. Nikola Tesla perhaps created a time machine using this energy. Free energy technology would exist if we understood this energy, and it's being suppressed. Again, there's Vril society. There's a community of people who are esoterically and occult interested and oriented, and they have the same name, but Vril is also the name of this energy. And so, yeah, you just have to wonder. You just have to wonder what was really maybe going on in that war that is so unlikely as to be unbelievable. And then you have to wonder, well, then what actually did happen? And why is it the one thing in the entire universe that if you even question it or talk about it, you're like akin to Satan? You should just be, people will freak just go out to the street and try any person. Just say, hey, what if the Holocaust didn't happen? People fucking lose it. Like, you cannot question it. You are not allowed. Anytime there's that much emotion and control over something, we should ask a lot of questions. And I'm not saying I know or that you should know. I'm just saying it's good to think. So the Vril Society. It's interesting that the Vril Society, here it says it's a group of women. I don't remember hearing that before, so maybe it's true. But they kept their hair long in order to act as an antenna to telepathically channel communication with alien races. We've heard this before too in a lot of native and indigenous cultures. Hair is also kept long as an antenna. I think Aleister Crowley talks about it too. There's all kinds of people who talk about your hair in this way. So it's interesting. I just wanted to touch on that perhaps our hair is a orgone accumulator in itself. But there's other traditions that shave their head and still have very high chi abilities, so I'm not going to commit to that, but it's just interesting. So the Vril and this Orsic, what's her first name? Maria Orsic is this high-level Nazi lady, very beautiful. She's apparently like sort of head of the Vril people and the German Society for Metaphysics and their little offshoot secret society, the Thule Society, which we've talked about lots on Rogueways. So she, I guess, broke away, made the Vril Society. Anyways, pretty central to Nazism and the Nazi Party. And perhaps they were in contact with alien races, and perhaps they did create these secret technologies. And, we hear about the Vril, or the Vril machines, like the bell-shaped flying saucer sort of things, and all of that is related to this same esoteric occult energy of Vril. Interesting. So the last version of this energy and the last version of it and description of it that we're going to look at tonight is Tao. And Tao, some people call it the way, translate it to the way. Some people translate it to the source. But most often it's described as the way or the path. It's interesting because we've spent this whole episode just jumping around these various ways of looking at this energy and describing this energy and the people who have and how they find evidence of it and all of this stuff. And here we get to the Tao. It's the way of all things. The way of all things. The symbol that most accompanies it is the yin-yang symbol. Again, we've seen that over and over again in everything we've described today. Because the polarities of a yin-yang form its essence. So remember, anytime it's in movement or present, it has a positive and negative, a yin and a yang, and that's its essence. It's present in every aspect of it. And dynamism, which just means movement, right? It's just change in movement. The Tao is the supreme ultimate. It's not a being or a god. It's higher, deeper, and infinite compared to any deities or gods. So it's beyond all things. It can be described variously as the force or power of all things, the cosmic force in all reality, the life source, and so on. All things derive from it and return to it. Everything has its existence within it. It is subtle, but it's ever present. It's transcendent, but completely immanent in all things. Thus, it is paradoxical in nature. The first line of the most important text in Taoism expressly expresses the difficulty in describing or defining the supreme ultimate. It says, the Tao that is said to be the Tao is not the Tao. The name that is said to be the name is not the name. I love this so much. There's this sense, right? You cannot describe it in language. It can't be reduced to words, concepts, or symbols. It's infinite, mysterious, and exceeds all words, no matter how poetic. So when we describe it or define it, we're merely approximating it, not encapsulating it in its essence or totality, which I love, and this is exactly why. Thus, we cannot become rigid or dogmatic about it, its qualities, nature, or workings, and that will be what saves all of humanity from this hubris that the controlling psychopathic class employs and practices. Because we cannot know it intellectually or analytically, but we can discern or intuit its presence and workings by developing certain virtue within us and following certain practices in our lives. Or really, it's just saying we all can know it, we all can sense it, we all can feel it, we all can work with it, even though we can never define it or limit it in any way. Every way that we could just hand it to someone else would be too limited. It would never be able to encapsulate it all or really express it. And so they say the only way to know the Tao is to be the Tao. The only way to have the way is to go that way, right? It's paradoxical, but it's so true. It's the same concept of, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. It's like by heading that direction and by aiming to grasp it and understand it, by aiming to develop it, you will. But you could never tell anybody exactly what it is or how. It's really, really beautiful. It's absolutely true. Rebecca is saying the Victorian women had very long hair. Also interesting, because that era was also very interested, much more so than today's materialists, in the vitalist sort of movements and ideologies. That is interesting. The Tao, I just wanted to read this first part. The Tao is broken up into all of these different chapters or sections. And so we'll just read the first one, because we already read a little bit of it. But the Tao that can be trodden is not the enduring and unchanging Tao. The name that can be named is not the enduring and unchanging name. Conceived of as having no name, it is the originator of heaven and earth. Conceived of as having a name, it is the mother of all things. Always without desire we must be found. If its deep mystery we would sound. But if desire always within us be, its outer fringe is all that we shall see. Under these two aspects, it really is the same. But as development takes place, it receives the different names. Together we call them the mystery. Where the mystery is the deepest is the gate of all that is subtle and wonderful. I want to remind you of the other episode we more recently did, which is Surrender is a Superpower, and compare the message of that episode to the message here of the Tao, right? If you have desire to find it, then you're not going to. If you let go of that and you just surrender to life's path, it will absolutely get more and more and more immersed in it and meshed in it and aware of it and aligned with it. Very interesting dichotomy there. Very interesting that it is so unlikely and yet true. So then we go back to this idea of the ether is it's another way to describe it, right? And those states of matter we kept touching on is the highest state, the eternal state, the state from which all else comes from. Ether is just one more word for it. And here's one description of it that helps us understand that. And this is, again, Blavatsky, lover or hater. It's interesting to think about. Occult science recognizes 7 cosmic elements. 4 entirely physical, and the 5th is ether, semi-material. So this is going even beyond our 5 episode in the 5 states of matter, and saying that there's even 2 more. So she continues, as it will become visible in the air towards the end of our 4th round, to reign supreme over the others during the whole of the 5th. The remaining 2 are as yet absolutely beyond the range of human perception, meaning there's literally no way humans could devise any kind of tool or any way of understanding, knowing, or working with those 2. So how are they there? I don't know, but let's just go with it. These latter will, however, appear as presentiments during the 6th and 7th races of this round, and will become known in the 6th and 7th rounds, respectively. She's talking about the various races of the world and sort of maybe even, you could say, like the ages that we're going to go through. These 7 elements, with their numberless sub-elements, far more numerous than those known to science, are simply conditional modifications and aspects of the one and only element. And this latter is not ether, or not even Akasha, but the source of these. So she's taken it beyond everything that we've talked about and said even the ether is coming from something else that we still as yet don't even understand. But she has the same way of describing it as all the other stuff that we've been talking about, which is that it's conditional, right? Or it's relative, or that you can only understand it in relation to it and not as its own thing, you know, in that movement between yin and yang, positive and negative, that we've been talking about this whole time. So it's interesting. We can throw that one more word in there, the Akasha. The Akasha and the ether are more ways of describing this. So you may be like, holy shit, what the hell is all of this? How many names can we have? How many ways can we describe it? But then we always get back to this, that we actually can't describe it perfectly. There are no words that could really communicate it at all. What there is, though, is a gnosis of it. There's the experience of it. You can know it. You can use it. You can have it. You just can't describe it or nail it down or quantize it in any way. Then we go back to that episode of Surrender as a Superpower, and we realize that we're describing this all along, right? That if you want to access and channel this force, you have to be in this state of surrender, this lack of desire, and this place where you don't need to communicate it or describe it or nail it down into a box anymore, but you just let it be and know that it is, just like Jesus and God told us, as well as every other spiritual practitioner. And so here's a collection of really intelligent beings who have shared their wisdom with us, and they all say the same thing. This is from Rumi, and Rumi says, they are the chosen ones who have surrendered. He's not talking about laying down and being a little bitch and being this fucking pushover and being trampled on. That is not what he's talking about. He's talking about what we were talking about this whole episode. He's talking about what we're talking about the whole episode of Surrender as a Superpower. It's the surrender to this highest state of matter or being or energy or whatever you need to call it. They are the chosen ones who have surrendered. Lao Tzu says, by letting it go, it all gets done. The world is won by those who let it go. But when you try and try, the world is beyond the winning. We could throw Yoda in here. Yoda says, do not try, there is no try. There is do and do not. Deepak Chopra, love him or hate him, he says, surrender is faith that the power of love can accomplish anything, even when you cannot foresee the outcome. We talked about that in that episode. Rumi again says, love is the sacrifice of will. If you cannot leave will behind, you have no will at all. There's that paradox again, right? When the true will that a lot of these secret societies will talk about a lot, the true will is not your will. Snake Jones in the chat knows that. He knows that well. So that's that will, the higher will, that will that you surrender to that is not yours. If it's your will, if you desire it, that's not it. You've already lost it. In the end, these things matter most. How well did you love? How fully did you love? How deeply did you learn to let go? Let it go. Let the dog run up the river and maybe kill another dog. You can't stop it. That one was the Buddha. This one is Shunryu Suzuki Roshi. The question posed to him is, how much ego do you need? And his answer is, just enough so that you don't step in front of a bus. And that's exactly right. We talk about ego a lot on this show, how ego is actually great and fine and you need it to stay alive, but you also have way too much of it. We all do. And it's great to start to let that go. You can't have this the ego is thirsting and desiring and going and will, and you do not get to vril or prana or chi accumulation and use with that ego constantly wanting and needing and going, right? You get to it by letting it go. The higher will. The other will. Again, that's not even the right word, but none of these are. We can't describe it. The last one is Ron Ratner. And he says, we have nothing to surrender, but the idea that we are someone with something to surrender. That's my favorite paradox of them all. And so one more look at this: 5 levels of being, 5 aspects, 5 states of matter. And here we're comparing it to this structure. We talked about this, the Jetty structure. We talked about this in an episode. We compared it to our antenna, our spiritual antenna, and we looked at all these pieces of it. This is one more aspect of it that just popped up today somewhere along this travels. And this was looking at these 5 levels of energy, just like in the body or in an external energy accumulator that you might make. And so these are the bhuta, or the elements, which is interesting that bhuta is elements, like Buddha? I don't know. Similar, huh? But there's 5 of them. Of course, there's 5. And starting at the top, which you can also start at your crown, just like remember those 5 energy centers. And this is not that system, but I just want you to notice how similar it is. And now we're going to add an element to each of these. But at the top, we have ka, like akasha or akashic, ka. And the element they're saying for that is space. But just look back at all we've talked about, and you could just as easily call that ether or plasma if you want. Below that, we have ya in your throat area, and that's wind, right? And the wind passes through there to make your voice, and that's air. And then below that, you have your heart, and this is where your emotion is, and all the energy portal is transferring through, and that's your fire, right? And below that, you have your waters of life area, your reproductive, your abdomen, where all of magic happens and is alchemized. And that's your water area. That's Va. And then down in your very root, just as you would guess, you have the dense matter. You have earth. You have matter. So you have matter, liquid, gas, fire or plasma, and that ether level. Very, very interesting that we have all those. So we're just going to play with these for a minute. And this is slightly different. There's so many different systems. There's so many different like chakra and energy center systems. There's so many different places you can put the elements and the ways you could, there's some people who put water down at the root instead of earth, fire in your belly instead of up in your heart. There's all kinds of things, but we're just going to play with this one really quick. And this is going to be our closing practice. If you're still here with us and you didn't give up at all the technical difficulties, then that's awesome. See Jenny B in the chat. Nice to see you. And so just as always, if you want to participate, you can. If you want to be sitting with your spine free and your feet on the ground, that's cool. If you want to stand, if you want to roll around on the ground, like you do whatever you want, whatever works for you. I'm going to close my eyes as I always do, and you can close or open yours. And we're going to breathe as we always do. Breathe into your belly, breathe into your heart, breathe into your throat, breathe into your head, and breathe out. And your chi, your prana, your vril, all this, it's already accumulating because we already worked with it at the beginning of this foray into these universal energies that are everywhere in every tradition. We already did, so you've already got it. It's kind of building. But now you're going to look inward. With every breath, you're going to bring light and attention inward. And you're going to notice your energetic column. You viewed it in so many ways, especially if you watch this show or participate with us. And today you're going to view it one more time and slightly differently. You're going to view that internal channel as like an antenna or like a sort of tower that's building. And you're going to start at the base. You're going to breathe into that base area, that root area, and you're going to notice how earthy it is, and how dense it is, how material it is, and how good that is. That's a beautiful element. Breathe all the way down there and just feel that density and that earthiness and that material, that matter that is just hooked in with that area energetically. It feels pretty dense. And you're going to breathe out any obstruction in that area, anything that is stopping the earthy density from being the raw energy that it needs to be. And just let that go. Remember, our energy, our orgone, our vril, our accumulation, our chi, our prana, it all loves less blockage. It all loves letting go and just letting movement happen. And we're moving with the breath, and we're moving with our intention, we're moving with our visualization, all that needs to go and unblock out and up and out. And now we're going to move up a little, and with each breath, we're going to be in our abdomen. And we're going to feel the watery liquidity there. All the liquid, the waters of life are there. There's a lot of liquidy movement in our being, and a lot of that energy is focused right here. And we're going to breathe into the water element, and we're going to see the clear, beautiful movement of all that watery energy, and anywhere where there's stagnation or blockage, we're going to breathe it out. Energy into the water element, light into that element, and blockage out, letting it go. We went from dense matter to liquid matter, and now we're going to go up to fire energy in our heart portal, where the plasma lives. We're going to breathe into that plasma, fiery heart energy. It's a beautiful fiery plasma energy that burns there. That plasma energy is linked to the highest states, and our heart is a beautiful access to those states. So we're going to breathe in the light and the gratitude to that fiery area, and we're going to breathe out and burn away anything that is stagnant or doesn't belong or needs to be let go of. Breathe into the fire. Breathe out blockage. You're moving this energy, and you're accumulating this energy, and you're going up in material ascendancy and lightness and disbursement. And now we're going to see the airiness in our throat area where the wind passes through our windpipes and brings sound and creation into being. Pretty close up there now to that highest state. We breathe the light in there. Just feel all that airiness in there. Feel all that movement of energy that can come through that space. It's such a powerful space. Breathe into that airiness, and wherever you find blockage in the energy, breathe it right back out. Airy goodness in, any blockage out. And now we're going to raise all the way up to the top, to the crown, to the point of the steeple, to the height of the states of matter, where there's that space or that akasha or that ether in that height there. And however you visualize that, whether it's all the other states combined, whether it's that space, that emptiness, that 0 point, or any other way you need to see it, just visualize that breath bringing that energy movement there. Expanding, clarifying. Oh, mine just became a toroidal field, so maybe you want to use that visualization in that space as well. Bring clarity and motion to that toroidal field, and breathe out anything that blocks it. Breathe in that light and movement, and breathe out any stagnation. And now breathe into all 5 spaces at once and see how that ether or akasha or space at the top accumulates more and becomes wind at the throat. Accumulates more and becomes plasma or fire in your heart. Accumulates more densely and slowly and becomes liquid at your core. And accumulates and becomes the most dense at the earth and the matter and the root. One last breath into all 5 aspects of your steeple, your tower. And then you can open your eyes. Whew. I don't know, man. I'm always all about this energy, motion. Oh, man. I'm having a really hard time with all of my technology today. I know everyone's like, it's Mercury retrograde, and I'm sure that's part of it. And I also like I said, really think that we're not allowed to talk about these things. We're not allowed to accumulate chi, energy, orgone, vril, all of that, and then use it for our own healing and enlightenment and awakening and awareness and our own surrender of our will and our ability to let go of our ego and blockages and patterns and all of these things that will help all of us and help us help others. You know, the world is going to go to those who can surrender. And it's true. And I hope this has been one more night on Middle Path of some regeneration and accumulation for you. If you like Middle Path, like, there is no reason you shouldn't be coming to One Day of Brightness, because it's like Middle Path on steroids, but with a lot more of the practice part and a little bit lighter on some of the heady stuff we go into, but not much. It's a real good mix. So I really hope to see you guys there. I know some of you in the chat are going. I'm not going to out you, but if you want to out yourself, you can. We've got a handful of really awesome people, a collection of really cool people. And like I said, if you are in that last minute category and you want to come, just because you're here tonight listening to this last call to action to come to the One Day of Brightness, you can use the last minute coupon code and get a tiny little discount for you just for being the last few people to jump on and join with us. The more the merrier. The perfect people come every time, so no pressure either, but I really, if it's calling to you, you should definitely go grab your spot now. It's always beautiful and awesome. I can't wait. I get so stoked every time we do these. I get so excited, and then the day itself, it's like even more exciting, and everything is just this explosion of wonderfulness, and that carries, again, like I said, all throughout. You can keep that going as long as you can, maybe even to the fall equinox One Day of Brightness, which we will do, and after that, I don't know. I want to keep doing them, but I'll see what my soul tells me. I was just guided to do at least these 4 through this critical transformative time energetically for all of us and all of society, and help keep that light burning and blazing and just really centered in as many people as possible. So if you're called to be one of those people and be a part of keeping that brightness flowing through the world, then definitely come. Like I said, if you like Middle Path and these practices we do, definitely come. This is your last call, and go use that last minute code if you're going to be there. So, as always, I explain this, but every time, I have some ideas of like future Middle Path episodes, but I don't really think too hard about it. But starting tonight and through the next week, the universe will start dropping nuggets of what I'm supposed to share with you guys next week. So I'm very excited to see where we go from here, as I always am. The Surrender as a Superpower, the 5 episode, and this episode have been like the trinity of awesomeness. If you missed any one of those, I highly suggest you go back and check them out. I know most of you know a lot of these things, but it's like the way they're woven together and the timing of them is also somewhat miraculous. Jenny B and many of us were tripping about some of the synchronicities of tonight's episode even before we began, and we'll see how many more keep on going all throughout the week. So I love you all so much. Thank you so much for supporting the show, Middle Path and Rogue Ways, in whatever way you do, whether it's tipping here on Rockfin, whether it is donating to paypal.me/Corey Sharman, whether it's purchasing yourself a book, one of the crystal or orgone necklaces and jewelries that I make, getting a blessing for yourself, doing a tarot reading, any of the things that I do on the site, buying yourself a Rogue Ways water bottle, which is now available for you. Or anything else. I just appreciate you so much. You're the reason that we can keep going as this community and be such a badass community. Again, I'll just mention, a lot of times every month I take about 10% or more of what I get from you all through all those things I just listed, and I share it back with hopefully our community, and sometimes outside of our community if I can't find a specific need in our community to give back to. But this month we had a need, and a lot of people stepped forward to share, and this month's tithe went to that need as well. So you're not just part of the most badass community online, especially if you're in rogue.locals.com, but you're also supporting myself, this enterprise, and all of the people who are connected to it by being a part of it. We really are doing this all together. And so I'm very grateful for that too. I'm very grateful to be a part of it and to be a part of your world. And so thank you for sharing your energy and sharing your love in whatever way you're doing that. Even if it's by just being here and being you, that's enough. That's rad. And I appreciate you too. So much love to you guys all. And until you really find that place in your core, in your center, that is the state of release and surrender. I'm pointing to my heart chakra for a reason. You can get in there and become that stillness and really release your will and tap right into the most infinite energy source that exists in ways that will literally transform all levels of your body, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. Like a miracle, like a set of miracles that is ongoing forever. Until you master that and tap into it and unleash it in your own life, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first and come to the one day of brightness. I will see you there on Saturday, and otherwise I'll see you on Sunday at Rogueways. Love you guys. Mwah.
Yeah, come on, Rat Kings, baby. It's the rap machine. Yeah. Check it. Gray bearded pirate. My motherfucker unknown. Yeah. Come on. In the place with my fist up, meaning I resist the bullshit that they feed us and lead us. This is just a part of the process, man. Just watch this, cause this shit's about to get crazy like a mosh pit. We lost it, toss it, let's start it again. Cause now with technology, with smarter men and women, this is the beginning, not the end. If this is the message of hope that I send, look on your TV, it's a culture of death. They'll keep on lying to the very last breath. We keep on striving and spreading the truth. It's hard to survive in this world full of youth. The door is closed, the old world is dead. Let's have an age of understanding instead. I'll include you and you include me. Let's see what we can build with some positivity. Let's go. You're moving too slow. Let me see your hands if you know what I know. Come on.
Rap like mummy, ain't no dummy in my rhyming. Started flowing freestyling, now they rhyming loud silence. On with the violence, bodies piling with the gray-bearded pirate. On your TV in 4K 3D virtual reality. Casualty of urban warfare. I know but I'm not scared, just prepared and aware. Shining my light through the tunnel of hope. Into the rope, but I'ma give it one more pull. Till the family is full. Take the bull by the horns and lead it to the slaughter. That would be harder and you would be softer. Sometimes I'm a monster, and you forever imposter. With your champagne and lobster. This royalty, the way it was supposed to be. Hopefully the new door opens and the old one closes. With way more focus and growth to mold us. And the truth that they should have told us.
To them screens, it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rulers that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood wands of holly. Suggestions that a flicker rate to camouflage the folly. Attempted mental robbery, executed sloppily. The pompers see this mockery and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet. Everyone got a gift, everyone got a light. They want you to forget that ish, cause they can't dim the bright. The positive vibration takes you past the sign shackles. From the sewers and the alleys in the moving castles. Who these assholes really serving with an exposed Achilles surgeon around the corner lurking to prove ascension trumps perversion. Learn them to catch fish and unplug the signal. Show them the simpletons now build the fucking temples.